Don't say anything
Yeah.
stupid.
I'm gonna say so many
I
things.
have to get
Hey,
guess
Jazz.
Hang on, I'm gonna get my cat on the mic.
Mow!
what?
Mow!
Also, Curb, does it sound good to you to like wait maybe how should we like
How's my
wait
cat
like maybe
doing? I'll be right
10
back.
minutes after 8 just so everyone who wants to show up has time before we
I'd say
start?
like 5 minutes, probably.
Okay.
'Cause
Okay. 8:05.
Why does non-vanilla Germa look kinkier? Oh wait, never mind. I'm actually stupid.
Yeah.
You're about to comment on Germa's cake?
No.
You should have, coward.
Wait. If he's non-vanilla, does that mean that's vanilla and that's chocolate Germa? Is that what
He
their
could be.
cake tastes like?
Bro.
Could be.
Why don't you ask? Just go in Germa's live stream and ask him.
True. Why did it kick me off stream?
Duh.
It does.
What the
Yeah.
hell?
Alright, I'm
okay,
back.
we're back. We're so
My
back.
What the
cat
heck?
is unsurprisingly sleeping under my bed.
This is actually, this is actually
I just honestly my personal favorite of all these is Bubby.
Bubby's
is
pretty
so
good.
I love
The sub like
The
substituted with
The head off.
Can we start it?
we're gonna wait for 5 minutes just so anyone who's late
Don't
I'm
keep
gonna
using
I'm gonna ping Conrad and be like, Junker Games.
Shut up, Ben!
I'm
My
gonna kill
mental
him.
status for real.
Okay, who's online that's in
Hi.
this that isn't in
Hi.
PC right now?
Hi. It's me.
Milky isn't.
I don't care.
1, 2,
I don't
Here,
care.
I'm gonna add him real quick.
We're missing 5 people. There's 13 of us total who entered, and we're
Okay.
missing
Yo, Oofy, lowercase O is here.
Oofy?
I am here.
Reference to hit.
I can't speak because my
Individual
earbuds give me a sec. I heard him. I think I heard him.
Okay, chat, do not watch Sasuke and Miyano.
Chat, please watch this
Chat, watch
action.
Sasuke.
Also,
Yeah.
Okay, we're missing Jaden. Where's Jaden? Hang on, I need to tell him.
I'm gonna add him.
Yeah, I'm at him.
Yeah, where'd I put it? I had it here somewhere.
He's in the shower.
No, that's
I
so
love how he
sad.
brings his phone with him.
Yeah, he brings his phone in with him to the shower.
Milky?
Oh, well,
You don't.
he better shower fast.
Not Milky?
Wait, were all able to hear me earlier?
No, it's
Because I
Oofy.
heard
Oh, we can hear you now.
We can hear you
Okay, I
now.
wasn't just
Juh?
I'm doing like schoolwork. I'm not even on my regular computer.
Imagine. Classes don't start until tomorrow for me.
Shut
This
up.
is don't
I'm in
start until
college.
after Labor Day.
Dav also starts college tomorrow.
Oh.
It's crazy to me
I'm
that
back
he's in
then.
college.
Yeah, we've
I
got
thought he was
until,
still a high schooler.
We've got until
No, he
next Wednesday,
graduated.
Jude. We're gaming.
Yeah, we
Huh.
are gaming so hard.
Bro, I feel
Yeah,
like
so
summer
hard, I'm-
just started for you guys. You Seattle MFers.
It took so long
kinda
for summer
did.
to start.
It did. It took so
We
long.
literally went into the last day of June.
Or look in the GC.
That's so fucking messed up, dude.
Yeah.
Like,
Guardian.
it's unfathomable
The
to me.
Guardian, my stream, my
That's
circuit
fathomable.
stream.
Who
He
joined?
joined. Yo, Milky!
Milky!
Milkers.
OMG.
So now we need more. Wait, 1, 2, 3.
We gotta
4,
wait.
Oh, we need
We
Damien.
gotta
We
wait
need
for
Damien.
some minutes. Oh yeah,
Last
Daymaker.
person out here dies, I guess.
Yeah, okay, we
True.
need Damien, we need Jaden, we need who else?
What if I put a
Oh,
gift with...
Nopro just got here. Okay, nice.
Yeah, Nopro just got here.
Based.
My
So-
game's battery. This is so good.
3,
I
4,
doubt
5.
Cruz is awake, but I'm gonna add him anyway.
He's
Yeah,
not
it's-
awake. Do not disturb
yeah,
the
it's-
man.
I'm going to add him anyway.
No, it's
Don't do
it's a school
it.
night.
The
It's a
Dylan
school
art
night.
starts now.
No, it's a school night for him. He can't. I don't think he's awake right now. It's a school night.
He's definitely not.
I'll take it off his ass.
Unfortunate.
is getting good sleep.
Yeah, baby.
Jude, why is your nickname Michael Ermintrout?
I think Curb said it to that at some point.
I did, yeah. Hold on, I need to turn Milky's volume
Yeah.
up. I can barely hear him.
Okay, Curb, why is Jude's nickname Michael Ermintrout?
Walter.
Because funny,
Walter.
this entire server is a Breaking Bad reference.
I'm not having sex.
Ooh.
Put your
Jesse.
dick away, Walter.
Jesse.
Jaden is
Walter.
gonna be so sad when he misses most of this.
I know.
I don't
That's
even know.
okay.
I don't
Oh my
even know.
God.
I don't even know what his characters are from, to be honest. I don't even know if I'm gonna
Interesting.
say them right. Kokushibo and Yoriichi? Yoriichi? Would that
What
be?
the hell?
That's
correct?
basically it. Yeah.
Okay, close enough. Are they like? Wait. Is it One Piece?
I
No,
believe
that's
it's
not-
Demon
One
Slayer.
Piece.
That is not One
Demon
Piece.
Slayer.
Wait, really?
That's
Yes.
Demon
It does
Slayer.
not
like
look
Demon Slayer
anything
characters.
like. They don't even
I've
look like
gotten,
One
like-
Piece characters.
One Piece
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
characters look so
Okay. I said
stylized.
that. I said that, and I thought about it, and I was like, "That's the dumbest thing I've ever said in my life."
Literally.
Fuck.
I'll be
Okay, I think we've got it.
know
for
what
now.
One Piece
I like how my
sounds like, and it's
spam
not
spin is
that.
like stretched out.
Besides
No way.
Jaden, but
Slightly
it's okay.
wide.
Ratchet's
We're
We-
missing
we have
Jaden,
1 minute.
Damien, Conrad, and Cruz, but it is what it is.
It is
Yeah.
what it is.
They'll explode.
It is what it is.
Put your dick away, Walter.
Wee.
Oh
Didn't
Someone
know
is-
the Kool-Aid Man was in this VC.
When does it start?
It starts now.
Now,
Let's go!
presently.
Hold on, let me get my
Okay.
donuts out.
Alright.
Yeah, baby.
Who just
That's what we've
left?
been waiting for. That's what it's all about.
Okay, whatever.
You know what we're talking about?
No one exploded.
If
As
anyone
the
does a
tribute
single
stand-
soundboard sound, they're banned.
Oh, good lord. Really?
As tribute stand on their
Speed
podiums,
run.
the horn sounds. Damien scares
You're
Jack
in
the
luck, I
Ripper
can't
away
even
from
do
the
it.
cornucopia. Germa snatches a bottle of alcohol and a rag. Tuff finds a bag full of explosives.
Oh my god.
Is it wait, okay, Doremi or Doremi?
Dorime.
Do-re-mi.
You were wrong both times.
Do-re-mi.
Isn't it?
Dorima.
Wait, if it's Do-re-mi, then why is that Do-re-mi? I don't get it.
Do-re-mi, fa, sol, la.
Doremi runs away from the cornucopia.
Base.
Base Bass.
I need to
Base
know everyone's
Bass.
district, bro.
Base Bass runs from the cornucopia. Cartoon Network Mafia runs away from the cornucopia as a
You
group.
need a list of like district people. What district belongs to who?
Oh wait, that's a good point.
Well,
You can start with one.
oh yeah, that's true. I can like. Do you
I'll-
want me
I'll-
to like add?
I'll
Add
type
that?
it up in I'll type it up in VC chat.
Yeah, just type it up somewhere. That'd be nice.
Okay. Should I keep going while you do that, or wait?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
All right. Oops, I didn't mean
Oh,
to do that.
Flame left.
Cartoon Network
He's getting
Mafia runs
food.
away.
You can get
Yoriichi runs
bitches.
away. Noki snatches a
All
pair
right,
of
I'm back.
sides.
It's me.
Rune retrieves a trident from inside the cornucopia.
Damn.
Minecraft.
Sheesh.
Let's
No
go.
way.
Devil takes a sickle from
That's
inside the
fitting as hell, bro.
Hedda.
cornucopia.
No!
Yeah. Get out of here.
Not Hedda. Yeah, I'd be scared too.
Spamton runs away from the cornucopia.
What a pussy.
Valorant Edators and Joe Biden fight for a
Yeah,
bag.
Joe Biden's not strong
Biden-
enough for the Valor.
Joe
Yeah.
Biden.
Joe Biden.
Penile.
He
You
can't
can't
for these
say it.
streets.
He got hit, Cam.
He fell asleep in the middle of the fight.
Jason. Because of his-
Oh my god.
You
Oh,
king.
Hey.
I'm so sorry.
That's an L.
I'm out frame
That
one,
is such an
dude.
L.
Killed by anyone. You just fell. You just tripped and perished.
Average
When I
is
fall into a
very
pit, I
behavior.
die.
I hate
Conrad
This
runs
this match
away
ain't even that
from the
bloody.
cornucopia. Grim runs away from the cornucopia.
Hate that image.
Kokushibu
dang.
back with the longest head in the game.
Dude,
Damn.
damn. Already.
That's not.
Hades. Oh
Jeez.
No, not
No,
Bobby.
Bobby.
no!
That's so real though.
Bobby.
So sad.
You
No,
would I kill Ben?
That's
Dude,
canon.
I
That was a
killed Ben.
canon event right there.
Oh
Yeah.
my god.
That was a
Nah.
canon event.
Bobby.
Frampton sees a
What
okay, wait,
happens
okay, they won.
to okay.
So we're into normal Hunger Games territory now.
Please, Kirby
Yeah,
kill
maybe.
Jevil.
No
Kirby
prize.
kill Jevil.
Don't kill Jevil, don't kill Jevil, nobody hit!
No,
Oh.
Kirby
No,
killed
I'm
Jevil.
lying.
They're friends.
Kirby.
You're the
Make out.
best friends.
Insanity.
Yeah, he is.
After Bobby
No,
died.
no, the
I
cartoon.
mean, what else is like a totally sane face, you know?
they're
Mafia work
Oh my
together
God.
today.
For the
It's
day.
literally
Rune
Ben.
has joined Cartoon Network Mafia.
Literally me. Oh my
Rune
god.
Okay, guys.
Okay.
Last line of the action.
Oh my god.
Damn.
You guys
Yeah,
know
You guys
that?
check
You know,
check VC chat for the
Oh.
list of people
Yeah.
in their districts.
Are you
Hop on server.
kidding me? Oh
Jeff
my
Ripper and
god.
Conrad split up to search for resources.
They're staying together.
The
Hey,
Valorant
yo!
Ediiton-
Oh,
Hey,
stop
yo.
it.
You don't like
Grooming.
go away.
No, not Jerma.
what?
No, I can't believe Joe Biden stole from Jerma.
No.
Let's go, Joe Biden.
Jerma's gonna kill him.
Joe Biden.
Mine's Illinois.
Greedy Joe.
Let's go, Joe Biden.
Dude, Joe Biden is
Let's go,
not
Joe
ready for
Biden.
Dreamy
Jerma.
searches for firewood. Oh,
Alright.
okay, big one.
Sick.
Here we go.
Why are there 4 people?
Uh
Is that a big
Yes.
Damien
Yes.
searches
Yes.
for
Yes.
No, not the
Face mask.
Bruh.
Base Bass is dead.
What is with Damien and like killing people? I don't get it.
No, Damien
Damien
I
is
don't
on
know,
Damien's
Damien
video.
is-
For real.
She is evil, and this is why I hate her.
Yeah, fuck.
I was
I
right
can't
all
have
along.
feelings on anyone.
Yeah, I'm practicing my archery.
Kill yourself.
Oh,
Damien
What
would
is
approve.
non-vanilla Jerma? Non-vanilla Jerma issues.
He's
This
catfishing. He's catfishing.
True.
He's picking up on that forehead.
Oh my god. Dude, why is
Fucking
everyone
idiot.
dying?
Idiot.
How many
Yeah.
people died in the first day?
Yeah, how
What
many people
injuries did
died?
he suffer?
Six.
Six.
God damn.
Go,
It's like
Joe.
frame one,
It's
man.
literally a quarter.
A quarter,
He
bro.
said-
No.
Longer.
Let's go, Bubby's dead.
Longer.
Bobby.
I bashed his head in with a rock.
Bobby.
No.
Live landmine reaction.
Hey guys, did you notice? Did you guys notice that the image changed? Did you guys notice that the image changed? The Lamar.
Yes.
Literally a Rust player.
We got it,
Here's
bud.
where we're at.
We got it,
Man, I'm
buddy.
dead.
Alright.
Hell
Hey,
yeah,
I'm
this
dead.
is kind of live, bro.
Ginger
Alright,
Nate stays
Jerma
winning.
and both
At
Jerma
least,
Jermas
and
live
at least
on.
Joe Biden's alive. At least Joe Biden's
Both
alive.
Joe Bidens live on.
Dude, I don't even care about myself. I just want Joe Biden to win.
I want
You teamed up with a senile old man.
Yeah, literally.
I can't
Yeah,
believe
man.
Joe
So-
Biden
He's so
stole
funny
from
and Joe
Jerma
won, though.
in
Just
95.
a side note, as we're going through this, keep in mind who you think you would like to vote for getting the dumbest death award.
Oh,
I already know who I voted for.
Oh yeah.
I've already
It's gonna
voted.
be. It's gonna be Curb. It's gonna be Curb. It's gonna be
So
Hades.
far,
Hades.
So far,
Yeah.
Decent has my vote.
Listen,
We're
Yeah.
falling into a
Yeah.
pit.
Yourself.
Instantly.
Literally
Dude,
just-
frame one, he feels
Please.
into it.
Chasing him, bro. He's
Please, yes, he's alive.
Loki and Joe Biden sleep in
Yo,
shifts.
they're sleeping together.
Oh my god, done,
This whole
dude.
team is out already, dude.
So sad.
Where's the? Where's
Damien,
the?
please die, please die, please die. Oh, okay, never mind.
Damien sees a fire but stays hidden.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Oh, what's gonna happen?
Oh no!
No.
Jack River fight Kirby and Spamton.
No!
Oh no!
Oh,
That's so
I
sad.
can't believe Kirby and Spamton just got killed. Oh no.
No.
What's Jerma
why are
doing?
there so many people dying? We
Discuss.
just started.
Okay.
Irma and
discuss.
What are
Conrad
they doing?
in the morning.
Okay. Oh god.
Doremi, Grim. Wait, Doremi?
Who did Damien kill?
Doremi. Grim and Valorant Daters sleep in shifts. Jevo looks at the night sky.
Yeah.
sullenly.
No, what is non-vanilla Jerma? Okay.
This
Okay.
is his husband.
Okay, that is non-vanilla Jerma behavior.
Zayna.
Aww.
Oh my god. Hades thinks about
So
home.
cute.
The underworld. That's
So
nice.
cute.
It's not.
Conrad fills Devil power supplies.
Milky's out!
Let's go, Conrad.
Oh no,
Damien
Milky.
travels to
No.
Ireland.
Dude, Damien needs to die. Damien needs
We need to kill Damien, dude.
Jerma's done nothing yet.
Damien is a threat. Damien is a
He's
threat.
going
Yeah,
to
Damien
everyone.
is a threat to
No matter
society.
what.
Damien, I feel like Damien might win, bro.
Yeah.
Did she almost win one of those?
She
Yes.
did, and then I killed her.
Yeah.
And then I killed her.
Vanilla
Non-vanilla
Jerma.
Germa and Jack Ripper
Oh yeah,
are
didn't you
hunted.
kill her by falling out of a tree that you couldn't climb?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
the-
of course. Noki tends to Cartoon Network
No.
Mafia's wounds.
The
That's so
wounds from
nice.
snuggling with kinky Germa.
Yep.
Oh.
Alright, place your bets. Oh.
Ooh, sponsored.
Unknown
Joe
sponsor.
Biden kills
Biden dies.
himself.
Biden
Joe
dies.
Biden.
Oh,
No.
He did a
Biden,
sting shot.
stay alive.
Oh, God.
Keep your
Yeah,
senile ass
They
alive.
call him
Here's
Shark
Germa.
Eye. They call him Sharp Eye.
It was too much.
Yeah.
Jeremy sprains her ankle running away from Tough.
Fucking idiot. Why are they going after each other?
No,
So
look at these.
true.
What the hell?
Kokushibo. I cannot speak Japanese. Searches for a water source.
Shiba.
They should like actually put it in Japanese. Hang on.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, head
Head
off.
on.
Rest in peace, head on.
I'm so
Rest in
sad that
peace, Head
Head-On
On.
is dead. Kirby.
No.
Bamson is gone. And
District
Bam-
9 has
and
fallen.
One day.
Bro, Milky is in shambles.
District 9 has fallen. This is a bad day.
This is a bad day.
Okay, I saw.
Conrad's a
I saw
smart
the
one.
kill.
He's
Night-
he's
I saw
teaming
the
up
word
with
kill.
Damien.
Yeah.
Conrad
He
and
recognizes
Wade.
We need to
threat.
kill Conrad and Damien, dude.
Damien is such a huge threat in these Sims.
Oh,
Grim convinces Tough not to kill him, only to kill him instead.
Damn.
Wait, so who died?
Tough
Grim?
Oh my
died.
god.
Oh,
Tough is
Uh,
dead.
Yeah.
Kill myself.
Rip Tough.
Cartoon
Oh,
Network
wait.
Mafia. They
Yeah.
attempted to
How
start
does
a
the
fire.
entire Cartoon
They
Network
can't
mafia
even
fail to
start
start a fire?
Oh my god. Okay.
Why are there
Wow.
five
So
people?
much people.
Jack the Ripper,
Alright.
Jeremy,
Wow, they're
Hades,
all
Grim,
sleeping.
and
Whoa,
Alan.
that is a
Sleep.
whole ass team.
That is a lot of wow.
Are
Okay.
these claims factual?
Joe Biden and Kokushibo run into each other and decide to
so
truce
let's
for
let's
the
go.
Joe Biden playing the slow game.
Obama cries himself to sleep.
He's so sad.
No
Boo-hoo.
unknowingly
No.
toxic berries.
No.
Oh,
You idiot.
no.
The furry is dead, huh,
Shut up,
idiot?
Milky. Both your tributes are dead.
I don't even know who you are.
True that. True that.
I'm
Alright,
Curb,
sun
bro.
has risen.
Oh.
The sun has
You're
risen.
curved.
Gay.
Germa
Germa
scares
scares Conrad off.
Poor
Real.
Conrad.
Hades refused clean water from
Okay.
unknown sponsors. He popular with the sponsors.
Hades
I
stays
know.
winning.
Yeah.
I am the
Look
sponsor.
at that
I
little
can confirm
face.
that.
No.
Jack the Ripper begs
Oh.
for Valorant invaders to kill him. He refuses, keeping Jack the Ripper alive.
Like if it was
Oh.
about
He
how
couldn't
he
handle
dated.
the he couldn't handle the e-dating.
Yeah, he
Thank
couldn't.
God.
They're probably
Grim
pulling out.
Thank
instructs
God.
Non-vanilla Germa tries to sleep through the
Bro,
entire
none of the Germans don't want to do this shit anymore.
Yeah, he is so out of here.
Yeah.
He wants to sleep
Grim
forever.
explodes from an unknown
Bro,
sponsor.
he got another one.
Oh, that's not gonna go
Damn.
well.
Yeah.
Oh,
Damien.
oh, okay.
Oh.
Okay.
Boo. I keep saying boo.
I kind of want her to win,
Kokushibo.
honestly.
No, I don't.
That
I don't.
would be
I don't want
funny.
to see her.
That would be funny. Joe Biden
Let's go.
tends to Cartoon
Joe
Network.
Biden just like
is
clutches and
Joe
gives
Biden
it.
Joe
is the
Biden
cartel.
is like awesome. Part Joe Biden. Part Joe
True.
Biden.
2 cannon shots.
Rip Tough. Rip
And
Tough.
no
Like,
key.
I'm trying. I'm in shambles.
Rip
This
Tough.
is unbelievable.
It's over.
Defeat.
It's actually Jover.
It's actually so Jover for everything.
How much district killer? Shut up, bro.
Alright, it's now nighttime. Joe Biden
Oh,
and Damien
Biden,
tell
don't get
stories
close to her.
about-
She's dangerous.
Damien
How come
actually
Joe
like works
Biden-
for the FBI.
Joe Biden is like talking to
Yeah,
everyone,
for
bro.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hate him.
Non-vanilla Germa's wounds.
Fuck Joe Biden be.
Germa.
Germa, dude.
What the
Germa
What
stays
is up with
loser.
Germa?
Cartoon Network Mafia and Grim hold hands.
Aw,
Real.
Oh, that's,
Real.
that's
kinda
so
gay.
cute.
Cartoon Network Mafia is so romantic. Oh my god.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So much snuggling.
Jack the Ripper cries himself.
Oh, there's like
Wait,
3 of
no,
them. There's a
cries
lot of
sing
stuff.
himself to sleep. My bad.
That's a
I'm
new
sure he has a
one.
beautiful voice.
Yep.
I'm sure he has a
Sing
beautiful
himself.
Oh,
Oh,
oh no,
Real.
no,
Oh my god. No.
I like how there's all these mundane things and then there's that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it literally just comes out of nowhere. Valorant Gators stays awake all night.
dude.
Dating.
He's unable to start a fire and sleeps without warmth. Haha, loser.
Fucking idiot.
This Discordian hood life ain't easy. Fake ass members who just snitch to get on banned. Watch out for snakes in
Oh my god,
Discordia.
why is there 5 of them?
Doremi.
Grim, Non-Vanilla Germa, Jack the Ripper, and Germa raid Cartoon Network Mafia's camp while they are hunting.
Nice.
Oh, raid the
Raiding the cartel.
The mafia's been raiding.
Shiba.
No!
Oh my god,
I'm
Damien
out.
is dead.
I'm out.
That's
down.
crazy.
I'm so
Hands out. Hands out.
If
Joe
a
Biden,
Demon
please
Slayer
live, please
character
live.
wins,
Just let her
if a Demon
sleep,
Slayer
man.
character wins, I'm actually gonna be kind of sad.
Joe
I
Biden,
will
please.
too.
Biden,
Oh, Joe Biden.
Let's go, Joe Biden.
Let her rest.
Valorant
Come-
E-daters are questioning their sanity.
So true.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's
Yeah.
just me in the
3
Valorant.
cannon shots can be heard in the distance.
Fuck!
Like Hades' reaction.
And Damien. Oh, this is such a sad death screen. Actually,
This
I
is
know.
No, it's not. No, it's not because Damien's dead. I'm so happy.
Celebration.
so funny,
Let's go!
It was
Let's go!
hilarious.
Runestay's winning because Joe Biden's still alive. Oh, that's
Literally.
cute.
Aw, Joe
Ripper
Biden's
Holmes.
getting
Dude,
revenge.
he's
grab
gonna
a
kill
beer.
him.
Joe Biden's gonna win by charisma, I tell you.
Dude,
Coco
if Joe
Shibo
Biden,
has
No
Valorant.
way.
He's gonna convince someone to kill himself.
Dude,
Oh my!
Kokushibo is
Is
killing
Kokushibo
everyone.
gonna win?
Oh,
Is
Coco
Coco-
Shibo?
No, I bet he's gonna he's gonna
Water.
sweep the whole lobby and then just like kill himself. Because that's
Yeah.
how the other game
Yeah.
went.
Joe Biden's gonna make him kill himself. Trust me.
yeah, Joe Biden. Joe Biden gonna make it win.
Oh my god! Jerma just
Jerma.
ambushed all of Cartoon
fuck, Jerma?
Network Mafia and killed
killed
all
his
of
own
them.
district.
Sherman's built different, man.
all
Sherman's
three of
built
them.
different.
Yeah, for real. Drummy
Nice.
and non-vanilla Jerma huddle for warmth.
Okay,
Yeah.
what I really want to see though is the face-off between Germa
I need to
and
see the
non-vanilla
face off.
Germa.
Yeah, I need to see the face
Oh,
off.
true.
I need to see them interact.
Alright, it's time. So it's an event, Cornucopia.
feast.
So, for those of you who have not watched Hunger Games, in the middle there's a bunch of food and supplies and
Motherfucker
stuff, and
just said,
everyone's gonna go for it.
"Watch."
That's gonna force them to meet. Whatever.
My
A
brother
lot of
Christ,
people are
it's a book.
gonna.
That's very
It's
Jerma
also
decides
a movie.
feast.
The movie sucks.
Strangles Jeremy
Damn.
after.
Ah.
Oh wow.
Germa.
Rim's kind
Okay.
of going crazy too, honestly.
Bro, we need the
Non-vanilla
Germans to
Jerma
see each other.
decides
Come
not
on.
to go.
Yeah.
Joe Biden decides not to
Oh,
go.
let's go.
Smart move.
Two people only
Joe Biden.
Jack the Ripper decides not. Wow. Okay, so it's
Wow.
literally just
Like, only
Grim
two
just
people,
has
bro.
it. Grim has it all to themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
because I just died.
And then Grim
Or
dies like
he
next
just
day,
dies.
watch.
Literally.
No way.
German is
Alright.
the river.
German
Alright, the
discovers
two
a river.
beasts.
Grim tends to Kokushibo's.
They're
Oh
working
god.
together.
Bitch.
Two are
That's
teaming
not
up.
okay. Well,
They're actually working together.
Kill the cat, kill the
Nah,
cat, kill the
no,
cat,
no.
kill the cat, kill the
Kill the
cat.
cat. Kill the cat. Kill the cat.
Demon Slayer, okay.
No, no, no.
Non.
Oh,
Okay, good.
He's still alive, though. He's still alive.
Thank
Still
God.
alive.
That's all I care about.
Thank
Rune, I don't think you
God.
could have
Jerma
picked a
lives on.
better
Joe Biden.
wait,
Joe
Johnny
Biden.
died?
What?
How much tributes are left?
I
Yeah,
thought
you got
he was
strangled.
Valorant.
You got strangled at the feast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Valorant
died.
invaders.
I thought that did not mean right.
Don't
Can't
strangle
believe
me,
the
Okay,
cocaine
it's
Oklahoma.
over. I'm
Fucking
not
Mafia got
Yeah.
ambushed. How much tributes are left?
Don't stay true to that, bro.
Alright.
It's weird.
I'm scared.
You for
I'm
real.
scared to
It's
fight
okay,
someone
bro.
because what if they choke me out and I know? Yeah,
I
literally.
didn't know Germa could do that.
Mine needs to win.
Please die, please die, please die. Oh, never mind.
Oh, something's going on with non-knowledge.
No, 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 no,
No.
no. Working together, no.
Oh,
See, I told you, Joe
Dude, when
Biden
I
is so
when I
charismatic,
see
he gets
those-
to sleep with like the powerful people.
Dude, Jack the Ripper, like,
German
dude.
12 or German
He's-
12 God.
Jerma's gonna
German-
chop someone up in a wood
Why is Joe
chipper.
Biden chasing people?
W Joe.
Joe Biden it's on site. I see him.
He's
so,
breaking those
okay.
Thank
ankles.
God.
I know.
Thank God. Oh no!
No!
Non-vanilla German face off.
No,
Germany
Joe
guy.
Biden.
I'm killing you.
sorry.
I'm killing you. I don't
Guy.
care about
Oh,
anything
can I
else.
ban-
I don't give a shit about anything else. My Pokemon is just get that fucking guy right now. It doesn't make me like, oh, he's ready. No, back up. Like, stop. Until I get you.
Non-vanilla
Can I ban
Germa.
Grim? Can I ban Grim?
For non-vanilla Germa.
What the hell?
Oh,
The meat grinder.
Yeah, okay, if I chop you up in a meat grinder and the only thing that comes out that's left of you is your eyeball, you're probably dead. You're going to not you. I'm just saying, like if someone were to
Where
like
did that
push you into a
come
meat grinder
from,
and like
though?
your finger though is still intact, they're not gonna pick it up and go, oh well, see, yeah, it wasn't
What are
dead.
you-
It wasn't an
what are you on
instant kill
about, bro?
move. You still got like this point of your finger left. No, I'm not gonna put you into a meat grinder. I'm not gonna put you into a meat grinder. No. Making a reference to the
Okay,
fact that
so
like
it's
if
not
like
wrong.
I if I were to get
He
fucking
was even
killed,
exposed
I don't know.
to- he
You
does
know
not
what I'm
need
saying. If
exposed
okay, if you
Someone
were to
stop this guy
okay, we're
from
gonna take
talking.
humans out of this.
Joe
Dude, I
Biden
love that
has
copy pasta.
Go Joe Biden.
Oh, yes!
Let's go!
Oh,
Let's go!
Hell,
Jack the Ripper
there we
W.
You did it.
He actually did it.
Let's
Germany's not
go!
putting people in the meat grinder today.
Grim. Oh my
Oh, there's like 3 people left.
The cat is dead, the cat is dead, the cat is dead, the cat is dead.
Reference to hit game, the Oregon Trail.
Joe Biden, you have to do it.
Guys, I have
Joe Biden.
dysentery.
Reference to hit game. Reference to hit game.
The whole lobby and then
The
just
Oregon
die.
Trail.
Literally.
They should call it the Washington Trail because of how shit it is.
Be heard in the distance. Honestly, I'm kind of happy with this screen, but
Yeah, me
it's
too.
okay.
I'm very much happy. I'm
I
glad
am
Demon
so
Slayer is gone.
happy.
Joe
wait, it's just
Biden
these
and
three now?
Obama are sitting-
Whoa.
Okay, kind of a base top 3. No!
Jerma carry.
You
Jerma
shouldn't have
carry.
skipped.
Wait, hold on. Who's District 12 again?
Me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, duh. I'm fucking
Jerma
idiot.
carry.
Jimmy, it's
So
you
it-
and me.
Joe Biden,
So-
come on, just convince him to kill himself.
Come on, Joe Biden.
No,
Joe
Jerma carry.
Biden.
No!
Jerma carry.
So Joe.
Germa won.
Joe Biden.
It's Jover.
It's so
Oh my
joke.
god.
Jerma W.
Winner is Germa 12.
Oh my
Germa
god.
Damn.
Can we do this
I'm
again,
done.
but like without
Germa
prizes,
has
just because
won.
it's fun?
Jerma W. Okay, what do I win again? I forgot.
That's why I wanted to do a 36.
Joe
player.
Biden.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
art. This art.
That was like
I
a
forgot.
solid less than 20 minutes. that took.
That's and
Obama
Last-
We can do like a
Jerma
couple
only
more.
got 1 kill, dude. Jerma got 1
Yeah.
kill that entire time.
Wait, okay.
He
First of
Jerma
all, let
won
me-
through everyone
So,
else's
I mean-
incompetence.
Who got first place?
Joe Biden didn't even kill anyone. He
Sashi
almost got-
won, yeah.
Yeah, I
And then
win.
I didn't try to do the passages route.
Second place is Rune. Third place is
Yeah.
Conrad.
Yeah.
Who's last?
Let's go.
Decent
whoever
got last place.
knows that, just like DM me that. So I know who gets prizes.
What were the prizes?
You'll
Here.
find
I'll
out.
just take a. I'll just
And,
take
The places where we kill you on the spot.
And then
You
it's-
die.
The prize is we shove you into a meat grinder.
Yeah. Jerma gonna
prizes-
shove you into a meat grinder.
I got, like,
Prizes,
bottom
I
average
accidentally
and
step
over.
into a landmine.
The person who got the most kills by far is Kokushibo.
Kokushibo, yeah.
I will
So,
kill him.
Jaden gets the W for that. So, do you guys have any thoughts on who had the dumbest death? I
Decent.
think that we're
Honestly,
Decent.
Decent.
Day
Decent.
one. Day one, he walks into a pit on his own.
Bro, he even made a
Yeah,
meme
that was
Yeah,
about it.
so funny. Really? He has?
Yeah,
Yeah,
hang on.
yeah,
Let me add you
yeah.
with it.
It's in PC chat.
Yeah, I know.
We see.
Well,
Why-
I'm not looking there.
Oh, okay, well,
I'm streaming.
Literally me.
I'll just put it in general.
It's actually right above
Okay,
pain.
that is so funny.
I didn't
actually.
realize it was there. Yeah.
He
Live
just
reaction.
fell into a pit, and that was enough.
Yep.
He fell
On
and
his
that
own.
was
How deep
Day
was that
one.
pit, bro?
It was so
2
Joe
inches. He just tripped. He tripped a bit.
I'll take a screenshot
one
of the
foot in
winners.
Let's go.
But let's do some for fun rounds now.
Let's
just
go.
Because
Run it back.
Yeah.
Alright,
I
tough.
better
This is your
not
round tonight.
immediately step on a landmine and
We're
die.
so back. We're so back.
Get it,
We're
get it.
acting so
go back.
I love that video.
It's so good.
Fun, bro.
Oh,
Oh
they
my
tell you all this stuff right here. Wow, yeah,
I
these are
think
the
it's
only
only got
people who
10.
actually killed anyone.
Oh, can someone pin the districts? Oh wait, actually, did we? I didn't look.
Homeless man
Two
outside the
kills.
supermarket.
Wait, how did someone get 2 kills?
It's so good.
I'm
Oh
dumb.
my god.
So
me-
Barack.
Would you guys like me to like add people's names real quick?
No,
What do you mean?
yeah, sure, go for it.
No.
I think we've got it by now.
Yeah.
Okay.
This cast
I
is
think
fun.
most of them are pretty obvious who it is. So
Yeah.
That's
It's iconic.
And, like, clearly tough is
Yeah,
Damien
it's
kills
pretty
Jack the
iconic.
Ripper.
No.
Damien.
No,
No,
scares away.
Hasn't this didn't
Damien
almost
behavior.
something like really similar happen? I don't know. Anyway. Germa snatches
Again?
No, wait, what?
Wait,
Winning
Jerma was
strat, winning
It's the
strat.
exact same thing.
Wait a second.
Jerma's
Is
on
it?
the alcohol
Oh.
grind.
Yeah,
It's
it's the
actually the same
exact
thing.
same event. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is the same.
He ran.
Yeah.
Okay.
What
I
the
need to-
hell?
Does that mean Decent dies again?
Where do
Can
I
you, like,
reset it?
Randomize it or something.
Maybe
wait,
like
It's the
add
edit
someone
cast
and then
button.
remove it.
Or like
I need
press
to
that-
learn how this works. Okay, here. I got it figured out. Maybe is it gonna be different?
Try.
2.
No.
That's the same.
Oh,
Press the adjust button, edit cast button at the bottom, and then like don't actually edit anything, and then just instantly press go, and then see if that changes it. Submit,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then proceed and see if that fixes it.
Proceed this.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is
Okay.
different.
Yeah.
There's a way.
Alright.
Decent.
He's so smart.
Wait.
Intimidate.
Is it the same scenarios just with different
No.
people?
No, Dory that scare
I'm
away
pretty sure
people.
Spamton does not have
again.
Oh, okay,
Wait.
yeah, it's different. It's different.
Yeah, it's
Right.
No, he got a.
Okay.
Alright.
As long as there's no side.
No,
Loser.
The winner of the last
Karma.
Germa.
What?
Dude literally ran on ice and
Oh
decided
my
it was a
God.
good idea.
Grim is gathering food. Hida runs away with a lighter and some rope. There we go.
Bubby dies.
Bubby runs
Damn.
away.
No, Bubby.
I want Bubby to win.
Me too.
Huff uses his birthday kit and runs away.
I kind of want to see Bubby get high.
Taters
I like
runs
that.
away.
Christopher High dies after.
Noki runs away. Shibo runs away. Non-vanilla Germa scares away the
Yeah,
Man,
it's
scared the
entire
mafia
thing.
away.
Yeah.
Damn.
like
Yeah,
they're
he's evil.
getting injured and needing emotional support.
He is
Literally.
evil, dude.
Bro scared away the mafia.
We
Wonga
do a
finds
little
bag
troll in.
full of explosives. Kirby runs away from the cornucopia.
Okay.
Conrad runs away.
Normal.
Jack Rickard runs into the cornucopia and hides. That's
Damn.
Kill someone.
He's gonna kill
You're gonna
someone.
jump someone, bro.
Face pass.
Face
Face
pass.
pass, grabs a
They see four
shield
people.
on the cornucopia.
Oh no. Oh no.
Oh,
Oh
Ladies,
Oh,
you're
okay.
seeing Joe Biden
Based.
Okay. Peace,
Oh,
peace,
bro,
peace.
rat.
no.
Boom,
No.
kill,
No.
kill.
Oh wait. No.
Kill
Yeah.
the
There was an
anime.
important death.
Why is there 5 of them?
Bro.
Be scared, be angry.
Bobby.
Bed gets
Bobby
water.
isn't there.
Y'all Spamton's in a
These
hunting
5 people go and hunt
Bubby
people.
too.
Hades receives medical. Why?
The unknown spot.
Why is this so early, bro?
He's
Oh my
balling.
God.
He's balling.
Longer travels to higher ground.
It's an early
Conrad,
sponsor.
Kirby, and Grim hunt.
Please.
Shibo, Cartoon
Bro, there's
Network,
so much
Jack-
hunting groups.
hunt for other.
Yeah, someone
dude.
kill someone.
There's so much hunting
Non-vanilla
groups.
We'll just,
Germa
like,
and
betray
Queen split up and search for resources.
Why are they all playing in teams, bro?
Well, not tough.
Tough
Where am
Yeah,
I?
no cross
Here I
teaming.
am.
Come on, you're gonna get banned by
Each
that.
other.
Yeah.
Ruin receives medical
Adorable.
supplies from an unknown sponsor. Hida and Valorant E-Daters hunt further tributes.
No one's killing people. Kill
What
people.
an ally!
One piece.
Like, wow. Base Bass constructs a shack. That's a funny image. It's like
That's
using,
a really funny image.
using this as like an appendage. Just to like
I know.
move.
I would
Um,
play base.
Yurichi
Smoking on
sees
it.
smoke rising but decides not to investigate.
Alright.
The only person who
The only person who died on day 1 is German.
Who won last game?
Good comment, District 12L, honestly.
That's definitely the dumbest death, though.
Jack
Nothing
the
Yeah, I
Ripper
was
is
saying earlier, he's the dumbest death for real.
Nothing can top. I
I
can
think top Germa.
three are discussing
I can
what
top
might
Germa.
Yeah, me too. That's what I was
Germa
gonna
receives
say.
medical
Okay, bro.
supply, unknown
Oh, what the
spot.
No,
hell?
okay.
Ian Kirby sleep.
No, wait.
Alright, Ethan, pop off. Yeah.
Yeah, banned pop off.
Bruh.
Spamton quietly hums.
True. First point, me when I press
Uh-oh.
1 backspace 8.
Rune attempts loser.
Actually, I think it's 1
No,
1
Damn.
fuck you,
Shots
Jamie.
fired.
Fuck you, Jamie. You take that back.
Oh wow.
Constant
Loser.
finals.
Ooh,
take that back.
It's notified.
Rune quietly hums.
Dude.
Non-vanilla surprise
Live
himself to
German
sleep.
reaction.
His brother just died.
Yeah,
It's so
his long
true,
lost
man.
cousin.
Yeah.
Bubby.
No.
Bubby,
Oh my
No.
god.
Oh,
Yo, Bubby. everyone
just
I would
in time.
definitely love Bubby, just saying.
What
nice
happened?
guy.
Here, Bubby
What
is
happened?
You guys like the logo, by the way?
I do
Yeah.
like that logo, actually.
Alright, hold on. Alright, so who
Oh,
won-
Rune
who
stocks
won,
Coker Shibo.
Bro,
Who won
he
the last
wants his
one?
ass. He
Kill
come him.
I'm gonna kill him.
He
What
come him.
happened? What happened? What happened?
Baron
What happened?
Germa and the Cartoon Network Mafia are all working together with Javel and the Bass Base.
Base man.
Oh my
Get
god.
it right, dude.
She refuses
Damon's
to
a-
be
Damien.
alive.
Damien's a murderer, but she has morals, I guess.
No, she doesn't.
She-
That's a lie.
She's scared. She's scared
He's
of
just
her.
doing it because it's fun.
True.
It's the sport.
Where the furry?
No,
Really interested herself
Damien's
with-
just
He
secretly
would do
a furry.
that.
Oh no.
Oh,
That's what it is.
Joe Biden W. Joe Biden W.
Joe Biden.
Biden.
L tough L.
Yurichi
that?
discovers the review.
Can we kill the
What?
Can we kill the Demon Slayer characters already?
Yeah, for
Yeah,
real.
Please.
Please,
Who
money
let them
every-
cook?
Right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, literally.
What? Precious gold.
cook.
He can't cook.
Grim
You don't
longer
miss.
receives a
hatchet.
hatchet from an unknown sponsor.
Bubby
Bubby.
dies. Bubby dies.
Who died?
Oh,
No,
he
he's
just
vicious.
finished.
Puppies, fishes.
That's so cute.
Hida and
Oh,
Conrad.
nice.
He would never do that. He would never
Pacifist
do that.
run for
IRL.
real.
I can't believe it's been 2 days and the only person who's died is Jerma.
Yeah, bro.
Who won the last time?
Oh wait, guys, who won the last one?
Sashi did.
Jerma. Jerma won the last one.
Jerma.
Yeah. Here, wait, hold on.
Jumbo can't do this shit anymore.
Wait,
No.
He can't do anything.
I can't do anything.
Valorant
I'm
Invaders.
More
Bro, why
Ediitors.
One hand. He's probably like holding his ears. Probably holding his ears.
Conrad defeats Base Bass in a fight, but spares her
Conrad's
life.
so based for that.
Damn.
Gunload is
Hey,
based
base
for that.
pass is a her?
No,
Yeah, family.
Why are you assuming it's gender, bro? Come on.
yeah.
So I was looking at his long appendage. I kind of.
You know
You tell me you don't like Gawk either?
Jack the Ripper is
I love God.
Wow.
Dude, I'm so glad Cribs.
Wow.
Cribs
All this
campus
gas.
now
Yeah.
can say words.
I
the
love
chrome-
saying the
Listen,
fuck
guys.
word.
looking at
Fuck.
Oh no.
Kill the Demon
Okay,
Slayers.
I
No.
Okay.
Bro, we need bloodshed. Come on.
Okay.
I know,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, there's like no violence.
True.
Thank God, bro.
No!
Help me!
Oh my god. I don't even need to read this anymore. I'm just
Wait.
listening to
Oh,
your
Damien,
guys'
Damien,
reaction.
Damien.
Bro, she keeps getting water.
Oh,
Bro,
Idiot.
Oh, come on. How is that not a gift?
That's why. They're trying to like try.
Bro, Conlad is the mafia. Look at that fit, though. Look at that fit.
He got the fit.
He strangled all three of them.
yeah, like
Uh-oh.
he strangled all three at once.
Dude, how do you strangle them? 2 of them don't have hearts.
No, this is the second time that both of the groups have like died one right after the other. That's weird.
Seriously?
Oh, okay, dude, that's.
That's
Oh,
so sad.
what is that?
Oh no. No, 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 no.
They're hunting.
He's
Okay.
chilling.
They're
He's
just
chilling.
hunting. They're
Joe Biden lives on. This is another
This
day.
is 9%.
to escape.
Oh.
The furries are attacking each other.
No, the furries are
They're at each other's guts, bro.
Oh, I need a better furry.
Oh my God.
God Squad. God Squad right there.
God squad.
Let's go.
God squad.
Go.
God Squad and also Rune.
Oh my god. Alright,
Okay, this is
Sashi.
bad.
No way!
No!
Yes!
Let's go.
Let's go!
Show me his shredded asshole right now. I need proof.
Uh-huh.
Yo.
Uh-huh.
He
Discovers a
died in
river.
dysentery. He couldn't find any
Bass
clean
and
things.
Vanilla Gemma are hunting.
When I was being kidding.
Very good.
Bro,
I'm
Chris is
sorry.
crying.
Rip those over, rip those over, rip those over, rip those over, rip those over.
Yurichi. Oh, I thought that said explodes the arena.
Yeah, me too.
Everyone
Let's just
dies.
make a nice little
No
stroke.
one dies.
Bobby, please.
Bobby!
Okay. Go.
Yeah.
Bobby is practicing his
You can
archery.
draw with those hands.
Please tell me I live. Okay, thank God.
Okay.
Okay, the people who died pretty
This?
quickly last time are still kicking.
The people who won last time
Alright, so
died.
we death.
Yay, no robbery. No
Rest in
robbery.
peace, cartoon network mafia.
Rest in
Balance.
peace.
You know what? I really like how the mafia looks the same in the death screen.
Yeah, they're exactly the same. They don't actually die. They take a tactical retreat.
Literally, they never die, dude.
They get rescued.
Stay
So
awake.
that's Litty Milky. Litty Milky. Oh, rip code.
I stopped the fort today.
Durami
Oh,
and
they were huddling again.
Bro, they're not doing it. Just huddling.
Yeah, that's what you think,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
Hell, loser,
Yeah, they're just
loser,
bots.
loser.
idiot.
Lose.
Bobby!
Uh-oh.
Oh,
Head
what
on.
is that all doing?
Kill
What
him,
does
kill him,
Jason
kill him.
do?
Yes!
Oh my god.
Head up!
Oh,
Come on, Conrad.
I'm on my Baird. I'm on my Steam controller right now, by the way.
Conrad.
Conrad would never.
Yo.
I just thought
okay.
you'd want to know.
This is the site of
That's
where he
awesome.
is.
Yeah.
Jevil lets longer into his shelter. There's so much like
His
peacemaking.
shelter.
Mhm.
Yeah, peace.
No
Yeah.
free time to his
Decent.
wounds.
Decent.
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 About winning.
Decent.
That screenshot
Bass
goes
is a
hard.
woman with dreams.
Kokoshibo defeats
Let's
Jack the Ripper.
go, Jack the Ripper.
No. Damien dies.
Damien falls out of a tree and
Jack
dies.
Ripper
Calling
Damien
it.
dies.
Yes!
Let's go!
It's over.
Oh, God.
It's
over.
so over. Oh,
Let's see it.
Joe Biden
turning on
strikes back against his greatest fan.
Yeah,
Guys,
literally.
It's Jover.
that's basically motivated.
Never mind, we're so back. We're so back.
They all work together to kill Spam Dude. They can't handle it.
Dude, they needed 3 of them to kill him, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah,
God,
man, he
Jim
looks
was
like
gonna kill
O'Neill.
the
Get him,
Joe
Dermo.
Biden. Yeah.
I'm coming
He
to you.
just
Joe
makes
Biden.
Spamson, bro.
You know what?
Jevil
Jevil.
receives medical supplies. from
Bro,
unknown
we could not
sources.
resist those great deals on our own.
Honor.
Kirby.
Tough
Kirby
together.
dies a dumb death. Kirby dies a dumb death.
No, no, no,
Kirby
no,
dies
no,
a
no,
dumb
no,
death.
no. Okay.
No,
Nick's a
nah,
Bro turned into a Waddle Dee.
I thought that said Nick.
He's a bandana baby.
Longer taints.
No!
Wow.
You do a little
crazy.
trolling.
Joe Biden? Okay.
Yo.
No, Byron.
Oh, Grim dies.
Grim
Oh.
fishes.
Damn.
Bass bass. Bass bass.
Bass, base bass.
Base,
Base
base.
Best.
Base, base.
Proceed.
Planet of
Lake Union? They don't even have jobs.
Or cannon shot.
The Union.
Head off.
Not
Damien.
head on. Not
Damien.
Tim. Not Dormy.
Dorime.
Rest in peace.
Oh,
We just got a Steam message. Yeah, I heard it. Who got the Steam message? Who was that?
It wasn't me.
I don't know how it works. Still.
Tries to sing himself to sleep. Longer receives a hatchet.
I thought to hang himself to sleep. I was like,
Decent dies. Decent dies. No, he doesn't.
Wrong. I got haters. But...
Yeah, I can't believe this.
Damn. Conlan's dead already?
Sheesh. I hate furry.
Hey.
Right. Jevil, I see Jevil.
Run into each other and for the night. Jevil,
Oh, okay.
Base Bass, and
Ooh,
Yuri
should have killed Yoriichi.
Ooh. Yeah, bro, Jevil
Joe
could have
Biden.
taken both of them.
Yeah.
defends Tough, Grim,
Oh
and
my
Joe
god, Kirby.
Kirby
did.
W. Kirby W.
Damn.
Kirby
Wow.
Bro,
died.
he defended 3 of
Joe
them.
Biden.
Yeah,
Jack
man.
the Ripper is
Oh,
awoken
rip.
at
Damn.
night.
What is he
Ooh.
having nightmares about? God damn.
Bro,
Man.
the horse.
He searches for
Being
firewood.
caught, I
Joe
guess.
Biden is
Mhm.
hunting.
Having nightmares about
Longer
women.
searches
I don't know.
Firewood.
Vicious.
Women are so scary.
Alright, clear. No one's doing shit, bro.
Literally.
That's so
Kill,
sad.
kill Kirby.
No, 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 no. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh
Okay.
my god.
Saved.
Honey party?
Uh-oh.
Oh.
Jim is gonna kill
Third time.
Kokushibo.
He
Kokushibo
better.
will go for this Jirma.
Defends Tough.
Boo!
Boo.
Kill Yoriichi.
Yo, Wolf Mud.
Oh,
Oh no.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
let's go.
Mud.
no.
There's gonna be bloodshed.
Kirby's dead.
Kirby's done.
Yeah,
Kirby's
he's
done.
for the wolf blood.
Tom,
Yeah.
I never do this. I'm crying in my
German
sleep.
survive- not
Jirma
survive.
is on.
Wait, no. Joe
No.
Biden, please.
No.
Joe Biden, please.
No, the demon
Joe
is
Biden,
first.
please.
Why?
Oh,
Joe
Longer
Biden.
Bobby.
Let's go.
No, Bobby.
No.
Not bad.
No,
Make it
Joe
three.
Biden. Please,
Joe Biden.
please.
Joe Biden
no.
is on.
Oh.
Joe Biden.
No.
Dude.
A worthy sacrifice.
This
No.
can't be right.
He will be
Right now.
remembered.
Yes.
Oh,
Oh my god.
Bro, they were on top of you.
yeah, he was the
Wow.
bottom. He was on the bottom.
Kill the furry, kill the furry, kill the furry. Yes.
Where's the wolf
I need to live.
today?
I need to live.
Grandma, grandma.
Not base bass. Just leave her for the wolf.
I live.
No, base bass.
Where's living?
For real.
I'm living. Yeah.
Nine.
Nine.
Conrad.
Nine.
Okay, now we're really getting into
Let
it.
that sink in.
He's dead.
Ah!
He's dead. He's rest in peace, Bubby. Kokoshibo.
Let's go.
Jover.
No.
It's Jover.
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 Rune is by done.
Rest in peace, everyone.
Oh, Scat.
Joe Bido.
We're, down
Oh,
to-
Scat.
we're in the last.
Oh, I'm gonna die.
Rune got an
He's
explosive.
so dead. He's so dead.
Oh, never mind.
Oh,
No, he's
no.
living. He's
Longer
living.
and double.
So good. He's so good.
This is the one time I want Peace to be making.
Tough
It would
tries
be
to take
really
himself
funny.
to sleep.
It would be really funny.
Yes!
Yes! Yes!
Yes!
Death.
Yeah.
Death.
Let's try that again.
Derma clients a tree to rest.
Damn.
No, if that were me, I would have died there. I'm gonna be
Let's
personal.
try that again.
If non-vanilla Germa wins this time, I'm gonna.
I hope
Alright,
non-vanilla
it's tough,
Germa
it's
wins.
tough, it's
Alright.
tough,
Germa,
it's
Germa
tough,
just,
it's tough,
Germa
it's
just
tough, it's
solos.
tough.
Feast.
I think Germa could beat Goku.
Longer's dead.
Rip turf, rip tough,
Germa wins again.
Germa smart.
Yeah,
Grim
Germa's so
Germa.
smart.
Oh my god!
That is fuck.
Rune, am I in that photo? Am I in that photo?
Yep.
Let's
Yeah, you are.
go!
Right,
Gemini
Jibble?
says-
Am I in the photo?
No.
That's okay.
Rune receives
Hi.
medical
Wow,
I
the
need
supplies.
pity
tissues for those
sponsor.
tears.
He got that pity sponsor, bro.
Kill the cat, kill the cat, kill the cat, kill the cat, kill the
Kill
cat.
the cat, kill the cat, kill the cat.
Germa's on the hunt, bro.
Yabo!
Toughest alpha blood. Jesus.
No, Joe forgot to drink.
Blood forgot what water was.
Joe forgot to drink.
Walker, Devil.
Toughest
What are we
alpha
down
blood this game. Good
I
lord.
didn't even forget how to drink.
It's non-vanilla
One,
Germa.
There's
Grim,
okay.
tough,
4
and
levels.
Rune.
Yo, I made top 5, okay?
Germa has no
top
kills
five,
yet.
we're
He's
still-
just stalking.
I made
So
top
bright.
5. Let's
Is he gonna
go.
get away with a killless win?
He's gonna get away with this.
Tough.
Yeah.
I don't even think Devil killed anyone.
I
Non-vanilla
don't think he
Germa
did.
tends to his wounds. Grim cooks his food. Grim is cooking. Okay, before
Get out of the kitchen. Get out of the kitchen.
Fucking dumbass.
Rip,
Wait, he's passed out. He's not dead.
Past I know.
Yeah, he's
But like,
dead.
he's still stupid.
Tough searches for firewood. Non-vanilla Germa constructs a shack.
Bro, what are you doing?
Rune L.
Go. I'm living. I'm living.
Rune L. Rune L.
Yeah, but you
Bleed out of
there's
this
no.
Rune L.
No one died.
Bro, he's got
Okay.
the wolf butts on him.
Oh, no.
No one died.
So
I died.
Germa
Just died in the
Germa
night.
Tough
cooking.
Wdo.
chose Rune. Rest in peace.
Rune fucking died.
Goodbye, guys.
Germa
I
always
like
wins,
how
man. Germa
Germa
solos.
just wants tough to kill someone, and they're like working together. That's kind of funny.
I
And
know.
then Grim-
Uh-oh, we're in the final
Like,
three.
Dude,
tough
Germa solos.
love
What can I say?
syndrome, bro.
Rip Rune.
That's a good death picture. I like that.
It is good.
Wah.
Dude,
Oh
Germa
my God.
solos. Germa solos go you.
Bro got a hatchet.
Uh-oh.
Germa
What if
solos,
someone
man.
died right here? That'd be so funny.
Tough
Oh,
is just
never mind.
sleeping.
Okay, guys,
Germa
top 3.
solos.
Tough.
Bro got.
Germa solos.
Germa might actually win.
It's
a
Germa
second-
solos, man.
Germa solos.
Oh my God. Surely it wouldn't happen twice in a row.
Yeah, I
No way.
Germa solos.
No
Germa
way.
solos.
Germa
No way.
won twice.
No way.
Germa carry.
Germa just won.
The Germa, I think Germa could beat Goku.
I was so close to winning this
Germa
fight.
could beat Goku.
Oh, Drew.
Crazy.
Holy shit.
Germa W Part 2.
We just
Jesus.
witnessed the greatest Hunger Games of all time.
Yeah, this is.
Surely he
Let's
would
go
win a
again.
3rd time, right, guys?
Yeah, sure.
Right, guys?
There's no way he could possibly
Here,
win a third
let
time.
me send some results to announcements real quick. Just
That would be
Yeah.
a good plan.
That's
Germa
crazy.
is the grand winner of the first Hunger
Well, we-
Games, followed
Yeah,
up by
I'm top
non-vanilla
5.
Germa, the second one.
There's no way he'd win a 3rd time, right?
Surely he would not win
Surely,
this time.
surely improbable.
Surely it'd be Joe Obama or Tough for you.
Guys, I want to
I
say
think
one
Germa
thing.
solos the third time. I don't think just Germa can lose.
I want to say
Who
one
has
thing
no idea?
before I say the other thing.
The gloopy soupy. That Yoiki's the first gif is funnier because it literally is Germa dancing in that gif.
Yeah.
It literally is him.
Who is District
It is
11? I
the
forgot.
one and only. District
Okay,
what?
look. Look at this.
Bro, what the
District
hell?
11. Who is it?
What the hell? No way.
There's an 11 room.
Oh, it's
What
Rune.
the
I say Rune's in District 11. Imagine being him.
Bro, Germa's a La Creatura.
The Germa is la creatura.
Rune, Joe Biden.
La Kitera.
And then third
Germa's
place
just like Germa is the creature.
with
The
Jack.
creature.
He is.
Is that
For real.
Ninja Blevins?
Is that Tyler Ninja
Blevins?
Well, we should come up with ideas for like the next Hunger Games.
Jaden, hi.
Dude, it was EST.
We need Ninja Blevins in the next one.
Jaden, you're
Oh
actually done.
yeah.
Me when
Oh,
Jaden
true,
can't
actually.
figure out time zones?
I was at Target. I had to drive and get something anyways. It was an unoptional side quest made by my
LMFAO.
Unoptional side quest.
Mandatory side
Unoptional.
quest.
Mandatory side quest.
mandatory side quest.
I think that's
On
called
God.
the main quest, my brother.
Yeah, but you need to progress the story.
yeah, it's a canon
Good night,
event.
Dad.
Shut up.
Cannon
Let's go a
event.
third time.
Canon
Let's
event.
go a third time.
It's just a canon event. It's just a canon.
An event.
Oh no, I see this video. Hold on. Okay.
Canon
So it's
event.
canon.
Canon event. Canon event.
There are 9 possibilities in that. You didn't expect that one.
Like has so many Japanese characters. Like I cannot find you on the ping list, my man.
Me?
Yeah.
Yes.
You
Okay,
have
there
to
we
type
go.
in
I
a
was
parentheses.
driving.
Okay.
Real.
If you have like a
feel like Gary
nickname
get
set
in.
up for me, you can just type that.
I know. I figured it out. Okay. Which ping should I use for the results?
Event.
Announcements, probably.
Yeah, go announce it.
I probably did. I probably lost.
Hunger Games winner.
Yeah,
You
you
did.
did.
Yeah, bro, you did.
Knowing my
Your
luck.
Demon Slayer MFers kind of threw.
Yeah.
Triple
that's
dog
right.
death barrage.
They
Yeah.
went they went crazy.
Sucks at everything
No,
else.
one of them went crazy in the first game, and then
Which
died.
one?
The edgier one.
Kuro?
Tokushiba.
The Kokushibo? Oh, that makes
Yeah.
sense. It's canon.
You know what's
Well, then
canon?
he got fucking murdered by Germa. So,
Dude, Germa won both games. It's crazy.
dude, yeah,
Is
Germa
Eddie actually?
never loses, dude.
Well, like one version of the Germa won, and then the normal one won the other.
There we go.
That's
The
crazy.
results are posted.
Yeah, the thing is, the other one also died immediately. So like,
Yeah.
Their average was perfectly average, but one of them died immediately.
In the second game, did
Second.
the normal Germa die in a fucking lake?
Did he
Normal
actually?
Germa died in
Let's go!
like
Frozen
frame
Lake and
one.
died. And
Yeah,
There we
frame
go.
one.
I got the most kills.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Game one,
Kokushibo.
Kokushibo got like the most kills by a good.
Yeah, that's
amount.
crazy.
Like, I think the closest runner-up was 3.
Yeah.
Let's go, Kokushibo. Living up to his name, my God.
Shut up,
Should
Minion.
you guys want to win a third?
Yeah, on a third. Third.
Surely he can't win again. Surely Germa can't win a third time.
Surely.
let's see what happens with Germa this time around.
Yeah, there's no way he could possibly win again, guys.
Surely he would
Yeah.
lose.
Germa, Joe Biden, Jack the Ripper.
If a Germa dies in the first like fucking
What
day,
is that?
Well, no,
Shipping.
that's the problem. There's 2
Do not
Germans.
get the
No,
reference.
dog. What the hell?
Still
There's
the
two
Shut
first
your
Germas.
mouth, triple dog death barrage.
Oh, there is 2.
Oh, don't you got to edit something first?
Runs away from the
That
corner.
emoji is so good,
I hit
dude.
a different button.
Yeah, that's a good one.
W. W.
bro, what is head on doing?
Hands away
Using his
from
mouth?
the
My muscles, my muscles.
Get up.
shit, I got head on
Rips
using
it
his mouth or
Rips
something.
it out with my mouth. Rips it out with my mouth.
Rips a mace out of Devil's hands. Kokushibo runs away.
That song is so good, dude.
Boom, grabs
Involuntary
back.
flex.
It's so good. It's one of the best songs. Grabs
You
the
have to listen to this
Oh
song.
my
Dude is
god.
fucking stupid.
Oh,
I'm a little silly, guys. I'm a little
Tom
silly.
Vanilla Germa runs
You're a little
away.
dumb, bro.
Jack the Ripper runs
Little-
away.
A little trippy.
The Valorant eat.
Dude, is there like a guaranteed stupid death
Here's
in
what
every
I'm picturing here.
cornucopia?
Here's what I'm picturing here. They're like all sitting there running in a line, and like they all fall in one by one, like a bunch of zombies.
At least they die happy and e-dating.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, they're just like following each other.
Single
Look,
cell
I think myself.
organisms.
I'm so
Face
dumb.
mask,
Hold on.
face
I can
mask,
fix this.
That's ironic.
Here we go. Here we go. Save.
He's a fat ass, bro.
Loki, shut up, oh.
Combat stays for resources.
course.
Damien runs away from the cornucopia.
Curb dies. Curb dies. Curb dies. Curb dies. Curb dies.
Kirby
Oh.
finds backpack.
Bro,
think
what
Kurt's
is
still
with you
live on
wishing
Twitch.
for my death? I am still live on Twitch.
Just hate you, bro.
And that just showed up, so...
Hey, no, that's on screen.
Yeah, it is
Let's
on
go,
screen.
Cool.
Joe
I thought I was
Biden
doing a
scares
favor
Hades
by
away.
not, but
Yurichi
Yeah.
snatches
Yo, alcohol, baby.
That's a
Jarma,
true
runs
samurai
away.
right there.
Cartoon Network Mafia
Oh,
shoots
no.
No!
No. Not
Never mess with the
Wonder.
Cartoon Network Mafia, bro.
don't mess with them, man.
See ya,
Spam
now.
Hampton dies.
Can confirm I died to the mafia.
Tough runs
Already.
away.
Fucking pussy, Spencer.
Local,
Oh my
Bubby
god.
local man discovered.
Bubby is
Oh, no, I'm actually saying I like myself.
Local
No,
man
He tried to
discovered.
say it.
Yeah, local
Article
man
versus
discovered that I get
1905.
Japanese
People
too.
are-
Start, like, I need
I'll
to
just
start like a
timeout.
thing. Hold on. Pictures.
Kokushibo
I'm gonna
going for the hunt.
Hold on, I gotta leak him. I gotta expose him in the logs real quick.
Wait, what happened?
Uh-oh.
Who are we exposing?
A decent
Your
set
mother?
of slur. It got timed out.
What?
Well,
Look at the logs. That's actually kind of funny.
Yeah, he used a fancy F.
Oh my god.
Yeah, he is the.
You're not slick, dog.
Oh my
I
god.
want to see. I want to
Whoa.
see.
Let's
Oh
go,
my
Jordan.
god!
Whoa.
Jesus.
That's
Joe Biden.
That's also.
That's a.
Wait a minute. If this is a Demon Slayer character,
Hang
And Joe
on.
Biden.
Hold on.
wait a
oh
second.
no.
That's the perfect thing.
What does she mean by this? What does
Joe
she mean by
Biden is
this?
canonically a demon, guys.
Canon
No.
event.
That's so
Canon
true.
event.
Honestly, he probably is. Look at that guy.
Joe Biden.
What
Bo
politician is it?
Jiden.
It's so Jover.
Kirby tries to
He is
stick to the
sleepy.
entire night.
He is
No.
sleepy.
No?
Kirby's
Oh,
sleeping.
okay.
No, Cartoon Network Mafia in Deltarune. That's crazy.
Hades and Conrad are working
Yo,
together
that is actually something that would happen. Canon event.
for Hedda
Canon event. Canon event.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whoa. Okay.
Whoa.
Damien
Thrill
protects
yourself.
head ass.
Let's go ahead. Let's go, Damien.
Damien allyship.
Damien, please die
Died
next.
already, bro.
Face Bass practices her archery.
Oh no, what is? No.
No!
You did it.
Let's go.
Jerma's fat ass literally squashed both of them.
Yeah.
Ain't no
Jim,
way.
krill yourself.
Musty.
I can't believe
so
you did
true.
it.
What is
I can finally
These
krill
are like tributes
myself.
to the dumbest things.
Jimma made a sacrifice.
Bro, the
for
other
the
Jerma is literally
Jimma.
going to win.
Other Jimma's
Jim
gonna win.
is a
It's a canon event.
Shut up.
It is.
Wait, I'm dead, right?
You're a canon event.
No. No.
Shots.
I'm like the earliest one to fall, aren't I?
Jermussy.
Jover.
Jover.
Krilling myself.
So Jover.
Bro, I'm a last place, so you krilling. This is
How much people is that? Like 5?
Rune received a hot chip from an unknown. Conrad is thinking about winning.
Yeah, I think I'd be 2.
Kokushibo's got the one.
Oh
mindset,
no,
you already
Damien.
know.
Child
Not
slave.
Damien. Oh,
The games and what might happen in the morning.
curb. Oh.
An unknown sponsor.
Unknown
I don't
sponsor.
sponsor her too.
Raid Shadow Legends.
Oh, yeah, he always with the.
Sponsored by
This is
Raid
Natasha.
Battle
I'm a
Legends.
little
I'd be
doctor.
huddling, bro.
Wait, hang on. Okay, there we go. Jack the Ripper accidentally detonates.
No!
No.
Damn.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
Fuck, how do you even do that to yourself?
Grim tends to his wound.
I didn't like this.
Based.
Captain.
They're so based. They're actually so
Hades
based.
begs Cartoon Network
Oh,
Mafia to
Jumbo
kill
and Swipton.
his
Yippee.
No.
Professionals.
No.
I didn't.
Does anyone ever actually like go through killing someone that's requesting?
decent.
I don't know.
Yeah, huh?
Noki
Oh,
passes
yeah.
out.
Fucking idiot.
It,
That's what you get for getting yourself killed.
Curse.
Nah, bro.
L.
That was tough fault, dude. That was tough fault.
Wait, we're only on day 2.
Yeah, this is
What
day
the
2,
hell?
bro.
Jesus Christ.
We went from the fastest food to the actually
I think I'm out of carnage. I
genocide,
can't
dude.
lie.
Help me.
Let's go.
Oh my god.
Grim is dead.
Bro, they
They
dropped
just
the
waterboarded
cat.
the furry.
Mario's
I
giant
hate
sound
that cat.
effects.
They just waterboarded the furry.
wait, is
They made
Furry mode complete. Return to base.
Grim is
Young man.
Kill
Anyway.
yourself.
Shaq.
Young man, kill yourself!
I love
Young man
Gordon
from
Ramsay, bro.
SMT5.
I love that Gordon Ramsay video, dude. It's so funny.
Have you seen
Man,
the
the
Gordon
unknown
Ramsay video?
sponsor.
Yo,
Have you seen the
decent
Gordon
guys?
Ramsay video where he
No.
kills like the
Bear
Oh.
kills
It's
spam.
over.
Had to be done.
Conrad receives medical supplies.
Die.
These are
I hate this.
Dog,
You
you
are?
are a
This.
sword
I hate
fighter.
this.
You are
I
a
hate this.
swordsman.
L.
Crying on his downfall.
L. Grim.
Rest in
Let's
peace.
go.
Like, they were both the ones that killed me, so I'll take the W.
Wait a minute.
Bubby is infected. Oh no. Bubby tries to treat his infection.
I'm infected with
Hades begs Kirby to kill him. He
Why would he
refuses.
do
Let's
He's
go.
too innocent to do that. That's
Why
what
would
he
he
would
do
do.
this?
Hades
And
is just
just say
begging
that.
everyone to kill him.
Yeah, he's a
Innocent
master.
team.
Damien
That's just
and
murder.
Coco run into
The
each
two
other and decide
murderers,
to
of course.
Bro, I
Yeah.
shouldn't be.
For real.
Oh, and then
Oh,
Dice
well,
Back
Damien
got
is
some
dead.
Dice
first.
First.
Dog.
These are fish, bro.
I found the video I was looking for.
How does the
Let's
base
go.
die from?
Oh god. Oh, this
What is the
one.
big part of the base?
They were out in the water.
Wait tonight.
I unironically love this.
This video is so good.
It's so fun, dude.
He has a lot of stories.
Cartoon Network Mafia in general tell stories about themselves.
Yeah, baby.
Get it? Bondage.
Oh, bro, man.
Marissa Toho dies.
Yeah,
Poor German.
I don't think that's
German
what
tries.
it is.
Little German.
It's
Oh my
not,
God.
but it would be funny.
Damien
Hey,
always
last time German climbed himself to sleep, he won.
Yeah,
True.
he did.
Noki,
Okay.
I think Jim
That's
McCarry's,
fine.
man.
God Squad.
No, the hunting squad.
God Squad.
They're also there's
God
200
Squad.
Dude, there's like
God
9 people
Squad.
banded together separately.
Kukushibo
Just like-
attacks Bubby, but he manages to escape.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
go,
get the
Bubby.
fuck away from Bubby, bro.
Yeah, what
Oh,
did Bubby
fuck
do to you, Chloe?
Elbows
Ah.
are Demon Slayer.
I didn't know
Demon
you
Slayer.
The Demon Slayer couldn't take on the lake.
L anime. L anime.
L anime.
Oh, that's my characters, damn it.
It's because anime fans are allergic to bodies of water.
That's so true.
We're discussing the game, what might happen. Damien and Rune run into each other and decide to truce for the night.
Rune, you're lucky, bro.
I'll be
Yeah, for
watching
real.
you.
I don't think
Come
I'm
on.
winning.
Combat.
Because they always win.
Mafia fends Bubby, Hades, and Kokushibo away
Nah.
from their
They-
Yeah, it's a 3v3. You can't win.
Yeah, it's a 3-on-3, bro. That's pretty
You
fair.
are not built
It's a
for
three.
Bart Simpson, bro.
3-on-3 versus in a home.
an unknown sponsor.
Bro, don't give the
Alright.
furry a bomb. That's just a
No.
bad idea.
Alright, Jeremy.
Furries can do a lot of things with bombs.
They got
German
him.
Carry.
Unknown
If
sponsor.
they
German
can
is
afford
not
a-
solo. There's no way.
German
German
receives
solos.
fresh
No, German
food, like what?
solos.
He's been eating rotten shit?
Receiving
What if German's just been
supplies.
feasting on rotten
The
food?
rest of the mafia is giving them supplies.
No,
That's
no, no,
what it is.
pause. How did we go? How did he go from
Oh,
attacking
whoa.
to not wanting to working on here?
Wait, sorry, hold on.
Oh my god, that is so fake.
No!
That is so
I got
fake.
held down by Kirby.
What were you saying, Ben?
How did he go from attacking me to wanting to kill me? No, I mean,
Literally.
It was a
I can't.
simulator. that
Actually,
was
that's a pretty
made-
logical train of thought there.
Yeah. If I wanted to kill someone, I think I would go through it.
Oh, German's dead.
German!
The 2-win streak. The 2-win streak. It's over.
Oh,
It's
whatever.
Jover, guy.
The one streak is Jover.
I
Two
really
pipe bombs.
I generally thought
Uh-oh.
German would win.
We'll split up to search for
I did
resources.
too, dude. I
Yeah,
thought
German
Just give me
German,
German
decent watch.
Exploring. Hades.
Couldn't be me.
This is so sad.
Hades tried to
Dude,
go.
who keeps dying?
Can't relate.
Stupid ass deaths.
Hades tried to go back home. It didn't work out.
It did not work.
Literally.
Rest in peace, Conlet. This is a sad. Oh yeah,
That is a sad lineup.
Fuck!
this is so sad.
It's so sad. It's so bad. It's over.
Okay, guys, if we do this again, more of you need to add like death images.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
because
you're-
they're
I
really
have like no
funny.
good death images. But I'll
They're
try to find
really
some.
Okay.
I found one, so
Yeah.
I'll give it to you.
I might have
Kirby
one
is
for each of
my
them.
nightmares.
Please don't die. Please don't die. Alright, nice.
Yeah.
We should
Yeah.
definitely make this a weekly thing.
Yeah, let's do this a weekly.
Weekly's a lot. We're not going to be able to think of enough interesting characters for weekly.
No, I
would
can't.
like-
I have a lot.
Monthly or
in my head, bro.
bi-weekly then?
Well, we could always reuse people sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like we could have like
for a while.
champions come back, you know.
Maybe we could like
Yeah.
add on to today and just add more
Like
people.
we're gonna have
That's
like
how that
the
works.
Germans
True.
come back.
That's true. Okay, so there's currently 24 tributes, and we can also play games with 36 or 48. So
Oh, yeah, we
if
can
you
maybe
guys
do
wanna
46 or 48. That might work out quite well.
48 sounds fun.
Yeah, but we
Yeah,
need
And then
like
just keep
Yeah,
this,
fine.
and then
we
like
need
So, like, I
24
originally-
people.
I originally wanted to get up to 48, but there wasn't enough interest. But the other option is to just give everyone 4 tributes, and then we'd get up to 48.
yeah, I think that works
We
out.
can do that.
I can do that. Yeah.
Damien forces Bubby to kill Noki or Cartoon Mafia. He refuses to kill, so Damien
No!
Oh,
No! Bubby died by his
This is so
pacifism.
sad.
I didn't know
No
they could
mercy.
choose. I thought they had to
I
choose.
can't believe. I can't believe.
to go.
I can't believe Ben
unfortunately.
didn't decide to kill the furry.
Bye.
This is.
I
I
know,
don't know who
right?
that is, but bye.
Bye, whoever
This is an
has
accuracy to the
to.
lore.
I would
Bye-bye.
never hold that
Can't
as Rune. I would beat up
Yeah.
Rune.
Yeah, I can't believe
Who
you're.
was that, by the way?
I can't believe you're into a 15-year-old. I can't believe you're into a freshman. That's so fucking up, man.
Ben,
No.
shut up. You're like droning in the
Graduating high
background.
school.
Shut up,
The
Ben!
Beat up
Shiggy
Rune. I will
Wiggy.
kill him.
The cornucopia.
They're trying to get some raw meat, huh?
Yeah.
What is he
Devil-
Do not
Devil-
fight
Devil-
with Baron over the raw meat.
Dude.
Jamal's a feral animal.
No!
Kirby, Kushibo, and Noki.
Let's
You
go!
bitch.
Wait, that's 3-1.
We do a little trolling.
Damien have to go to the
I'm a creeper. My country reaper.
Cartoon Network Mafia decided
Oh,
not to
the
go.
feast. I didn't know that.
Mafia's built different.
Okay.
Shiggy wiggy.
Day 5. Damien receives
Like
medical
Lucky Splinky.
supplies.
That yoinky sploinky.
I feel like Damien.
I just said that.
Yeah.
Devil diverts Rune's attention and runs away.
Face?
Yeah, get the
Can't
fuck
even do
out of here.
anything.
Like
Yeah,
goofy
man.
soupy.
You can do anything that cause diversions.
Cartoon Network picks flowers.
Based
Oh,
behavior.
that's so inactive to the lore.
Based
No, that's
behavior.
No.
Oh,
Is
that's like
that
lore
is this
accurate.
accurate, guys? Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's more
What?
accurate.
Oh, okay. Last
Yeah,
one.
look at Kirby's death image.
Falling.
Wait. I gotta do the thing.
Rest in peace.
Bro, I want to
Noki.
put Peter Griffin in this because you could just use his like the fucking Family Guy death pose for his death anyway.
Oh yeah, true.
That was so good.
Absolutely.
I actually do have an idea for another sponsor, for another person too.
Decent and Jeb will run into each other and decide to truce for a night.
L,
Bro, 8 toxic. Dude, did Damien die to that already?
Wrong.
Yeah, she does. She does.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, L
Never learned.
Rune was the second.
That's what they get for killing tough. I did not take that kind of slander.
You're dumb as hell. Sorry.
I mean, it wasn't me, guys.
What the hell?
Stop!
Bro, there is no one else to hunt.
Yeah, I think.
Who's in the Discord?
Oh my god, stop playing the soundboard. I'm gonna kill
Stop!
L Damien, L Damien.
Who was doing that? Genuinely.
I have no
Wasn't me.
clue.
I would.
I don't know how to use it on mobile, so.
How did Damien die? What happened to Damien?
8 times berries. Like the nerd they are.
Word.
Fucking hell.
Anyways.
Alright,
I'm not even pressing the vine boom anymore. It's so bugged.
It's bugged? Yeah, sure.
You when I hit him with the
He grilled
Pharaoh's
hamburgers.
curse.
Rune L.
Rune is woken by nightmares. Cartoon Network
Oh,
Mafia.
What? The mafia would never do this.
Yeah, this
Dude,
is
the cartoon
lore
never
inaccurate.
never this week. What the hell?
This is not the lore accurate, isn't it?
This is not lore accurate.
That is not
I
lore
knew
accurate.
it.
No,
What go?
Decent
Oh, it's the top.
no.
Okay.
Wow, wow, wow.
Baron is remembering how he died in the first game.
This is Baron after the Cartoon Network Mafia.
Please,
Did you say want?
This is what happens when Joma does it solo.
let's get
This is
it!
fucked up.
Insane lane moment.
So sad.
One kill. Bro, Rude killed
I
6
died
people.
immediately. This was so
We
embarrassing.
killed 5. We killed 5.
Let's go.
Rune L.
This is a district.
Dude, I think
L.
Joma's killed 2 people and won twice. Like both of them combined.
Literally.
He killed 2 people.
And then he died immediately.
This is like very. Oh, Rune.
Rune pop off.
Bro, when in oh yeah, there's the bomb. It was the bomb, bro.
It was
Oh, dude,
You got like 3 out of 5 of us
Also,
killed
I
from
just
bombs.
remembered we had a pacifist award, and I think that one of the people who placed top, Joe Biden didn't kill anyone.
Yeah, Joe Biden didn't kill anyone.
Yeah, bro, he was friendly and then he died second place.
I love that guy.
Joe
love Joe Biden.
W.
Common
I
Joe
know.
Biden W.
Oh. Well, we should
I'm
definitely do this again.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
this is funny.
Very
I like
easy
this.
to put together.
I know, and it's entertaining.
True.
It's just
This
about
is so
timing,
easy to set up.
All you need is a VC for people to shout it.
Well,
Yeah,
see,
but-
the difficult part is convincing people to actually participate. After that, it's easy.
It's
And it's really funny
really
because
too
this
hard.
is like the easiest thing ever to participate in. You literally
Like, all you
submit
gotta do
2
is, like,
pictures. You DM someone 2 pictures and you're in.
I
It's
literally
quite
just think of 2
literally
characters and that's it.
Yeah, it's
Natasha
like
from Genshin
not
Impact.
even that hard.
I would be willing.
No, not Genshin Impact.
If you put a Genji character in here, I will kill you.
I already have.
I remember one of my
Me.
Yes, yeah.
Stupid dumb, stupid dumb, stupid
Barely
ad.
is the
That's
Genshin
gay.
character.
I would just use like the middle finger as her death animation. That'd be so funny.
Fuck
Wait,
you.
can I post the meme Decent made to announcements?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah.
Don't even ask. Don't even ask.
I mean,
Just
look at event announcements. Look at what we've been posting there. So
That's true. That's true.
I think you can post whatever you want, man.
In the context of the dumbest death, it like makes.
Can I have announcement terms?
no.
True.
No.
Explode.
Okay.
If I could give you announcement terms, I would, dude.
No.
It'd be so funny.
I'd snap
bro.
him back.
Okay.
Sashi, is that your cat in shitpost announcements?
Yeah.
Yep.
I got it. featured.
Ew.
I didn't even know he had a cat. That's
I
awesome.
got
He
it
does
a
now.
Either,
couple
bro.
days
That's
ago.
cute. I like your
Yeah.
cat.
That's awesome.
Ace
Can I
cat.
eat it?
Oh no,
Why not?
Your cat should
because
be
she's
whacked.
under my bed and I can't reach her.
Your cat
Oh, that's the only reason. That's the only thing stopping you.
Yeah.
I'm so glad
Oh,
we
so
bro.
they would be eaten otherwise.
Otherwise, it's free game.
It should be a
Cats
little.
on the way to wake you up at 2 in the morning and then sleep under your bed.
I'm reacting to it with a dinner plate.
Callum.
Would you guys want to do this as a monthly thing? Like,
Yeah.
We should do this as a
Monthly
daily
too
thing.
spaced
This
out.
is
Daily.
very
at
low
school.
maintenance.
Okay, honestly,
Hey,
if I'm being completely honest with you, so let's say that people who
Hypothetically.
don't want to participate in, like, from now on, we just reuse their tributes, and then people who do
Yeah.
want to actively participate,
Participate.
Participate.
they can change their tributes as they see fit to like continue
Yeah.
to actively participate. So
that sounds
don't
good. So it's
need
like
to get-
it's almost like a monthly tournament with the rolling tributes.
monthly, it feels like a long time. I think it's a long
Maybe
time.
bi-weekly for right now, and we see how that goes.
I think
from there.
bi-weekly is a
think-
good idea.
Yeah,
Yeah, because
bi-weekly.
weekly's too
I
slow,
can do
and I would not
bi-weekly.
really have
I just,
time. But
I can't offer as good of prizes if it's bi-weekly.
Right,
I
it's
can
fine.
do.
Well, we just do it for fun.
It can just
Yeah.
be a for fun thing, but like
Yeah,
yeah,
it'd be
small
for
prices
fun.
then yeah.
I
It
kind of
doesn't have
want
to be for
use,
prizes.
I mostly use as the prizes as an incentive to get people involved.
Well,
and
incentives are good, so let's
And
do
now
it.
that we have people involved, I don't think it's really necessary. Like Jamie, this is what I was
Yeah.
talking about the other day with you, where it was like how this is more of a friend group that needs more
Yeah.
like it's more like a fun party thing versus a competitive tournament thing that needs prizes.
And I just exist every so
yeah,
often.
I just like to call it a
Little
tournament
NPC.
out of like habit, but
It
it's
is
really
fun
not a
that way.
tournament. It's like
Yeah.
we're just
No, this is actually the most skillful tournament to ever occur, if you ask me.
Literally.
Yeah, definitely.
Very
All
Just
that
because
kind of
you're
stuff.
one
do
place,
is play-
okay.
all you gotta do is have a summoning circle and pray to the gods.
Yeah. It's not. Look, it's not my fault you guys don't do daily prayers to Ara and Jesus.
Exactly.
Okay? Yeah.
or,
Fire Jesus is
You have a deck. What do you
I
mean?
Do I still have that emoji? I think we do.
Yeah, we
Okay.
believe in Ara and
We
Jesus.
do, yeah.
Okay.
we believe in our
We
Jesus.
are in Jesus believers here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Plays rapid deck. I can confirm.
What's up, Benny?
Guys,
He's
what if we did
retired,
an
though.
Among Us thing? What if we did an
So-
Among Us thing?
If we played
No.
Among Us? Nuh-uh. What if we played let's see, what should we play?
What
I'm
if we
pulling
played
up Steam
Steam
right now.
balls?
Unlocks.
I'm
on
pulling up
Nintendo
Steam right
Switch?
now. Hang on, what should we play?
I
What if we
have
played
some.
Hollow Knight
Probably-
Randomizer?
Hell
I'll probably
yeah.
watch
I'll get on
you
after I
guys.
shower.
I do-
Bro.
I do
Washed. He's gonna get washed.
Yeah, bro. I'm so
Alright.
washed.
Oh my god, a
Alright.
shower.
I'm gonna get off too. You guys
I'm gonna get off as
have a good
well.
night.
Me
Yep,
too.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna stop
finish
stream.
work.
So say bye,
Bye, guys.
chat.
Bye, chat.
Goodbye.
Manana.
Bye, chat.